Hello students. So today we will be dealing with your unit 1, that is 8051 architecture of your 8051. So before beginning with your 8051 architecture, let's have a quick glance like what is meant by your microcontroller as well as a microprocessor. So in case of your by the definition, just by looking at the word like micro and processor. So micro, it refers to the size of that chip or the size of the circuit, whereas a processor is a circuit which has computational as well as processing capabilities. So the combination of these two words as a restriction of its size as well as the circuit or the chip is having some processing capability, it is called as microprocessor. So as you view in this block diagram, the microprocessor basically it consists of arithmetic and logic unit, plus it has some working registers like SFRs as well as general purpose registers, like which you call it as accumulator as well as working registers. Plus we have some other special function registers like program counter, stack pointer, clock circuit as well as interrupt circuit. So by using your ALU, your microprocessor can perform operations on arithmetic as well as logical operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication or division, or logical operations like logical and, logical or logical not, or logical XOR. So the microprocessor, it does not contain any of the inbuilt primary memory like RAM and ROM. Plus your IO microcontroller will not be having any of the inbuilt or on-chip IO ports. So for that reason, as it is not having any built-in RAM memory or ROM memory or any of your the IO ports, for that reason the microcontroller circuit is commonly referred as microprocessor, or sometimes even we call it as general purpose microprocessors. So for example, we can say that whatever the personal computers or the laptops you have, right? So those inside it, again it has a CPU or it has the processor. So that processor, it can be used to perform any of the operations. Okay, it is not used for any dedicated task or any specific purposes. So if you design any circuit by using your microprocessor, by having some external amount of memory, external memory like external RAM or external RAM, plus if you want to interface some of the external devices, then directly they can't be interfaced with your microprocessor. Then in between we require some intermediate devices, or we require some interfacing devices by which you can connect some external peripheral devices or external devices to your microprocessor. So if that circuit, if it is used for some dedicated task, then we call it as a special function microprocessor. Special function microprocessor means that specific circuit or the specific device, if it has been programmed, then it can be used to perform only a dedicated task. It can't be used for any other purpose. Whereas for example, if you take your personal computers and all, or your laptops, it can be used for any of your purposes. For that reason we call it as a general purpose. So you can say that your microcontroller or microcontrollers are special function microprocessors which are used to perform some dedicated task, right? So as a block diagram, we can say when your microcontroller, it has your ALU, arithmetic and logic unit, plus it has the accumulator, it has your special function registers. In addition to that, whatever the internal parts you have which are present in microprocessor, along with that we have some additional components which are present on chip, like it has inbuilt internal RAM memory, stack internal RAM memory as well as ROM memory, plus it has the IO ports, plus it has the inbuilt timers and counters, plus it has the interrupt circuits, plus it has on chip clock generators, right? So whatever the functions or the functional blocks you have in case of your microprocessor, along with that we have some additional circuits, means the things which are external to microprocessor, they are internal to microcontroller, right? That's the thing we say microprocessor, it contains your ALU, general purpose registers, right? Plus in case of your microprocessors, it has only few bit handling instructions, whereas in case of microcontroller, it has many bit handling instructions. in case of microprocessor, less number of pins are multifunctional, whereas in microcontroller, more number of pins are multifunctional. So what do we say? In case of your microcontroller, so as you go through your block diagram, what it has in case of microprocessor, just we have arithmetic and logic unit, we have the program counters, right? Plus we have some SFRs, we have the interrupt circuit. Okay, plus we don't have any of the IO pins or anything. External memory can be connected along with your microprocessor. So depending upon the type of your microprocessor or the amount of memory which has been connected, means if you want to communicate or connect the external memory, we require some of the address lines as well as the data lines. But in case of your microcontroller, along with your address and data lines, we require some of the inputs for your timers or counters, or we have the IO port, some pins are required, right? So along with your address lines and the data lines, in case of microcontroller, few or some additional pins are required. That is the reason we say, okay, instead of increasing the number of pins, okay, they are going for the multiplexing technique. Means the same pin, it can be used to perform on a time division basis. Okay, depending upon its circumstance, depending upon the time, the same pin, it can be used to perform different functions. That's the reason we say in case of microprocessor, less number of pins are multifunctional, whereas in case of microcontroller, more number of pins are multifunctional. So this has been adopted, or multiplexing has been done just to reduce the number of pins. Plus we have a single memory map for data and code program. Means in case of your microprocessor, the same memory it is used as a program as well as for storing your program, as well as the IO, means your input and output, which you call it as a data. Means a single memory acts as a data memory as well as the code memory. Whereas in case of your microcontroller, it has a separate memory map for data and code, means for your program to store your input and output values, as well as to store your program, we have a separate set of memory. Okay, so in case of microprocessor, the access time for memory and IO or more, means if you want to read, because in case of your microprocessor, okay, so the memory is external to the chip, whereas the IO devices are external to it. Means there has to be a communication from your chip to the external devices. So the time required, means access time is to read the data from memory or your IO port. Means always access time is measured with respect to read operation. Means the time required to read any data from your memory or from your IO, it is more. Whereas in microcontroller, the time required, the access time is less, because everything is internal to the chip. Okay, so what do we say? If you want to build a microcomputer system using microprocessor as its CPU, then we require additional hardware devices. That depends upon the applications. What is the amount of memory which has to be added, the type of RAM as well as ROM, plus the number of IO pins which are required. Means some external hardware has to be used. But in case of your by using if you are using a microcontroller as its CPU, then okay, so depending upon your application, either it can be done with the help of the whatever the internal features are available, or else very less external hardwares are required. So designing a system by using microprocessor as its CPU is more flexible from the design point of view. Means as per your requirement, as per your requirement or as per your design, what should be the type of memory, or what should be the amount of memory, okay, it can be decided. Whereas in case if you are using a microcontroller as its CPU, then it is less flexible. Means since the additional circuits which are residing inside the microcontroller, it is fixed. Means in this case, whatever the timers you have, or whatever the amount of internal memory, RAM or ROM, whatever timers you have, or the number of IO ports you have, they cannot be altered or they cannot be changed. Means whatever the additional circuits you have, which are means the peripheral devices or the peripheral things which are internal to your microcontroller, either it may be the number of your IO ports or the number of interrupts, or it may be the type of memory or the amount of memory or the amount of your IO lines, they cannot be altered, or the number of timers and counters or the type of your DAC or ADC, they cannot be altered. Okay, that depends. Whatever the internal features you have, they cannot be changed. So that is the reason we say it is less flexible from the design point of view as compared to microprocessor. Okay, but in case of your microprocessor, we have a large number of instructions. with flexible addressing modes, means the number of instructions are many with large number of different addressing modes. Addressing mode means how that operand or the data is specified in the instruction, that we take it as our addressing mode. So the method how the data is specified in the instruction, it can be specified in many different ways which are available in microprocessor. Plus there are large number of large set of instructions, whereas in case of your microcontroller the number of instructions are limited. The number of instructions are limited with few addressing modes, right? So this completes your the difference between your microprocessor and microcontroller. So next we'll begin with your so in case of your microcontroller or your CPU, central processing unit, or the processor architecture, so we have two different types of CPU architectures or two different types of systems when we take it as RISC and CISC. RISC stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computer Machine, and CISC stands for Complex Instruction Set Computer Machine. So that depends the number of instructions which are available, means whatever the system you have or the computer you have, which concept it follows, whether it follows the RISC concept or it follows the CISC concept. So coming just comparison of your RISC and CISC. So in case of your RISC, the instruction takes 1 or 2 cycles. Means in case of your RISC machine, okay, as per the system designer, it is fixed the number of cycles taken to execute per instruction. Either it can take 1 machine cycle or it can be done in 2 machine cycles. That is fixed. That depends upon the number of instructions. And in case of your RISC, most of the instructions are executed in a single machine cycle. Most of the instructions are executed in a single machine cycle. Okay. So but in case of your CISC, instructions they take multiple cycles. It is not fixed. That depends upon the type of your data, or depends, right, type of your data. Either the instruction may be executed in single machine cycle, or it may take 2 machine cycles, or it may require more than 2 machine cycles. So it is not fixed, it is not constant. Some of the instructions may require more than 2 machine cycles, but in case of your RISC, most of the instructions are executed in a single machine cycle, or some instructions they may be executed in 2 machine cycles. So either the instruction has to be executed in 1 machine cycle, or it is executed in 2 machine cycles. In case of your RISC, if you want to access the memory, means if you want to perform any operation with respect to the memory, it is done only with the help of your load and store instructions. But whereas in case of your CISC, there are many instructions in addition to your load and store instructions. Okay, there are some other instructions by using which the memory can be accessed. Means in case of your RISC, memory accessing is done only with the help of load and store instructions. In case of CISC, along with your load and store, the memory accessing can be done with the help of other instructions also. In case of your RISC, instructions are executed by hardware. Means whatever the instructions you have, the instructions are hard coded. Whereas in case of your CISC, instructions are executed by the microprogram. Means if you are writing in case of your CISC, one instruction, it may execute, or it may be executed with the help by executing some other instructions, right? Then in case of your RISC, we have fixed instruction format. Means the length of the instruction is fixed. That depends upon your type of your that RISC or processor, or whether it is a RISC microcontroller, whether the length of the instruction is 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit. So if it is a 8-bit, okay, in most of your cases, the length of the instruction will never exceed 8-bit. That we take it as a fixed instruction format. The length of the instruction is fixed. But in case of your RISC, we have the variable instruction format. The length of one instruction may be of 8-bit, the other instruction may be of 16-bit, and the next instruction or some other instructions may be greater than 16-bit. It is not fixed. But in case of your RISC, the length of the instruction is fixed. Okay, then we have, in case of your RISC, we have few addressing modes. In case of CISC, we have multiple addressing modes or many addressing modes. In case of your RISC, the number of instructions are limited. we have only few instructions, whereas in case of your CISC there are many instructions, or we can say a complex instruction set. Means in case of your CISC, whatever the operation you want to perform, for each and every operation we have the instruction. But in case of your RISC machines, okay, so we don't have all the instructions for performing all your operations. For example, in case of your RISC machines, they have multiple register banks, whereas in case of your CISC, we have a single register bank. That is a group of registers, what we call it as your register banks. Okay, then in case RISC machines, they are highly pipelined, whereas your CISC, they are less pipelined. Pipeline means multiple operations, or whatever the processing is done, it can be divided into different stages. For example, we take the mode of your execution, or the mode of, or the phases of instruction execution are fetch, decode, execute, and write. Okay, so the write back may be the write back, either it may be present or it may be absent. In simple, just we can say the phases of instruction execution are: first it has to go through the fetch phase, decode, and execute. Fetch means the instruction has to be fetched from the memory, then the instruction has to be decoded. Okay, so during the decoding, it recognizes what are the actual operations which are to be carried out on the operands or on your data, and the actual operation will be done in the third phase, which we call it as the execute phase, right? So what happens in case of your first, in normal, if you take it as an instruction execution, first the instruction has to be read, it has to be executed, it has to be decoded, and then it has to be executed. After completing the first instruction, then it has to read the next instruction from the memory. Means after completing or executing the earlier instruction, then it has to fetch the second instruction or the next instruction. So again it has to fetch, decode it, execute it, and then it has to go for the next instruction. So if this fetch, decode, and execute, if this work, if it has been divided into three stages: fetch stage, decode, and execute, and all the three stages they execute in parallel. Means fetch phase will fetch the instruction, decode will decode it, executing stage or execute phase or execute stage will execute the instruction. So what do we say in case of your pipelining? First, the first instruction will be fetched from the memory, and then it will be sent for the decoding. When the first instruction is being decoded, and if the system buses are free, okay, if the system buses are free, means your address data and your control lines, if they are free, then the next instruction, it can be fetched from the memory. Means the first instruction is being decoded, and the second instruction is being fetched from the memory, right? So this completes its second cycle. So in the next cycle, or the third machine cycle, the first instruction which was decoded earlier, now it will be sent for executing. The second instruction which was fetched, now it will be sent for decoding. Okay, and the third instruction, now it will be fetched from the memory. Means the first instruction is being executed, the second instruction is being decoded, and the third instruction is being fetched from the memory. Means all the three things, they are happening in parallel. That we call it as your pipelining. So in case of your RISC, it is highly pipelined, whereas CISC machines, they are less pipelined. So in case of your RISC, the complexity, it lies in the compiler, whereas in case of your CISC, the complexity is in the microprogram. Okay, so next, beginning with your the next bit, that is your the type of architecture levels. Okay, so we have two different types of CPU architectures. One we call it as Harvard and Von. The second one is Von Neumann. So whatever the systems you have, either it may be processor or it may be controllers, either it may be based on your Von Neumann or Harvard architectures. So Von Neumann architecture, it is also called as Princeton architecture. So in case of your Von Neumann or Princeton architecture, okay, the basic feature is that it uses a single memory space for both instructions and data. So earlier we said in case of your microprocessor, what we said, it uses a single memory for your program data as well as a code. Means for your program data as well for the program code. Means your program, a single memory is used. Okay, but in case of your Harvard architecture, we have a separate memory for your program code and the program data. That is right. That is in case of a Harvard architecture. Plus, in case of your von Neumann architecture or Princeton architecture, it is not possible to fetch instruction code and data. So simultaneously, earlier we said, as in case of your pipelining, okay, it is not possible to fetch instruction code and data simultaneously, because only one the address has to be sent, only one memory location has to be accessed, and the data has to be fetched from the memory. But in case of your Harvard architecture, instruction code and data can be fetched simultaneously, because we have a different set of memory, okay, and okay, for your program data and a program code. So data and your program code, they can be read simultaneously, whereas your von Neumann, as we have only a single set of memory, simultaneously fetching of code and data is not possible, right? Plus, in case of von Neumann, execution of instruction takes more machine cycles, right? So as earlier we said, simultaneous fetching and all these things is not possible. So until the data, if it requires any, if any instruction, if it requires a data from the memory, again the address has to be sent. Until the memory responds or the data is available, the CPU has to keep on waiting, and then it has to be executed. The time required is more. As in case of Harvard, as simultaneously fetching and fetching the data and your code is possible, okay, execution of instructions, they require less machine cycle. So von Neumann uses the CISC architecture, whereas your Harvard architecture, it uses the RISC architectures, right? So in case of your von Neumann, instruction prefetching is a main feature, whereas in case of your Harvard architecture, instruction parallelism is a main feature, means the instruction executed in parallel, whereas in case of your von Neumann architecture, well in advance, some instructions from the memory, well in advance, they are fetched from the memory and stored internal to your processor. They are not decoded. So once the first instruction completes its execution, then the next instruction will be read from the right. The next instruction will be fetched, decoded, and executed. Okay, so also your Princeton architecture, also known as control flow or control driven, whereas Harvard architecture is known as data flow or data driven architectures. So your Princeton architecture simplifies the chip design because of single memory space, whereas Harvard, as it uses two separate set of memories, okay, the design is complex. Then the examples of your von Neumann architectures are 808, Intel 8085, Intel 8086, Motorola MC6800, and whatever the general purpose microcontrollers you have, or your the special digital signal processing chip, all these, they are using the RISC architectures. 1 minute. So the next bit, that is selection criteria for choosing a microcontroller. So if you go for a commercially, there are four major 8-bit microcontrollers which are available. Okay, they are your Freescale 6811, Intel C8051, Xilox Z80. Then we have the PIC 16X from Microchip Technology. So each of this, whatever the microcontrollers we have, the commercial which are available, each of these microcontrollers, they have their own instruction set, or they have their unique instruction set, as well as the internal register set. Okay, so as each of your microcontrollers, they are having their own instruction set, as well as they have their own register set. Okay, so each of these, whatever the commercial microcontrollers which are available, like it may be 6811 or 8051 or Z8 or 16X, each of these, they are not compatible with each others. Means the program which are written for one, they cannot be run on the others. That is one factor. Plus, there are also different types of microcontrollers which are available from different chip makers. That depends upon their word length. Okay, like 8-bit or 16-bit or 32-bit. Okay, so with all these features, as there are different manufacturers, the instructions set for each is different, plus they have their different register sets. plus the word length is different, like 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit. So with all these things, now the designer has to consider some criteria or some factors which microcontroller has to be chosen, so before choosing any of the microcontrollers, okay, the criteria for selecting the microcontroller are: the first point is that it should meet the computing needs of the task. Means whatever the application is there, it should meet all the computing needs at task, plus the cost should be less. Second, availability of software development tools such as compilers, assemblers, and debuggers. Readily, whatever the software development tools you have, readily they should be available. Third, wide availability and reliable sources of microcontroller. Okay, so one thing is that the first point, it should meet all your computing needs. Means whatever the task you want to perform or the computing need or the application is there, it should suit your application, plus the cost should be less. Second, availability of software development tools, like either it may be your compilers, assemblers, or your debuggers, readily they should be available. Plus third, the wide availability and reliable sources of the microcontroller. Okay, earlier we said the first and the foremost criteria for choosing a microcontroller is that it should meet the task at hand. Means whatever the application you have, efficiently it has to perform it, plus it should be cost effective. Okay, means first you have to analyze, the programmer or the designer has to analyze what is the need of your microcontroller, what should be the word size of your microcontroller. Okay, whether you want to go for 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit. Means what is your computing need. Okay, what is your computing need, whether you want to go for 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit, which suits your requirement, right? So among the other considerations, for example, if you are depending upon the word length or your processing capability, okay, like 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit, the other factors are: the first thing is speed. What is the highest speed that the microcontroller supports? Second, packaging. Does it comes in a 40-pin DIP, that is dual in line package, or it is available in quad flat package or some other packaging formats? Because this is important. What is the type of packaging? It is important in terms of space, assembling, and prototyping your whatever the product or the circuit you want to configure, the design you want to have of your PCB. So when you want to fabricate it, what is the amount of space available, whether you want to go for a 40-pin dual in line package, or whether you want to go for a quad flat package, or any of the other packaging formats. That depends upon the type of assembling, and that depends upon the types of space what is available, right? Okay, third comes the power consumption. Okay, so the power consumption is a critical factor when it comes for a battery powered products. The fourth one, the amount of RAM and ROM which is available on chip. So that depends upon application, what is the amount of type of RAM as well as ROM, plus the amount of RAM and ROM which is available on the chip. Then the number of IO pins, the number of IO ports which are available, and the number of timers or counters on the chip. How easy it is to upgrade to the higher performance or lower power consumption version. So once you design a system, if later on whether the circuit is upgradable, means whether the processor which has been used or the controller which has been used, whether it can be upgraded to the next higher performance or next higher performance chip, or if any lower power consumption products or the versions if are available, means easily whether the circuit can be upgraded, it has to be considered. Then cost per unit, what is the this is an important factor, the cost per unit, because the cost of your microcontroller, now it determines the cost of your entire product. Means that is the final cost of the product in which a microcontroller is used. So this is an important factor, right? The next criteria we said, that meeting the availability of software development tools. So it has to be checked, so whether easily the assemblers, debuggers, or your C compilers, whether they are readily available. Okay, plus the technical support, whether it is readily available in-house or outside from any of the experts, whether it is available. Okay, it has to be checked. And the third criteria, that wide availability and reliable sources, means the third criteria in choosing a microcontroller, the microcontrollers which you are selecting, readily it has to be available in needed quantities. Okay, needed quantities at present as well as in future, readily it has to be available. Okay, so for most of the system designers, even now, okay, the first two criteria are considered as a main important, right? But all the three, it has to be taken into considerations, like which microcontroller suits your applications, right? Whether it has to be 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit. What is the speed of your microcontroller, that is operating speed, plus the type of your packaging, in which packaging it is available, that depends upon the type of your circuit and the space which is available to place your microcontroller, plus what is the amount of power consumption. Okay, plus the amount of RAM and ROM which is available on chip. Okay, plus the number of IO pins and the number of timers and counters, right? Whether it is easily upgradable to the next higher versions, cost per unit. Then we say, okay, the availability of your software development tools, whether readily it is available, plus any expertise either in-house or outside, it has to be checked. Plus the third criteria is that, okay, whatever the microcontroller, readily they should be available at present as well as in future, right? That is the thing we say, wide availability of reliable sources of the microcontroller, right? So your Intel 8051, okay, which is designed by Intel. So along with the same thing, we have different types of manufacturers of the same core, 8051 core. Okay, like Intel, we have Intel, Atmel, Philips, AMD, Matra, as well as Dallas. Okay, so some of the variants of your MCS 51 family, or you can take it as family members of your 8051. So 8051 is a subset of the 8052. Okay, so basically your Intel 8051, it was developed by Intel Corporation in 1981. Okay, which is an 8-bit microcontroller, right? So your 8051 is a subset of 8052. Plus you have one more chip, that is 8031, which is a ROMless, means the internal ROM is not present, ROMless 8051. Okay, so if you are using your 8031, okay, which is a ROMless, and if you want to add a ROM to it, okay, then you will be losing 2 ports, and only 2 ports will be available for IO operation. Means 8051 is having 4 IO ports. If you add ROM to your 8031, then your 8031 will lose 2 IO ports, and only 2 IO ports will be available for your IO. Okay, just a comparison between your 3 family members, that is 8051, 52, and 8031. So 8051 is having a 4 kilobytes of internal ROM memory, on-chip programs, on-chip ROM memory. 8052 consists of 8 kilobytes. 8031, okay, no internal ROM is present. Okay, 8051 consists of 128 bytes of RAM. 8052 consists of 256 bytes of RAM, and 8031 consists of 128 bytes of RAM. 8051 has 2 timers and counters. 8052 has 3 timers and counters. 8031 has 2 timers and counters. The number of IO pins which are available in 8051 is 32. Means either you can take it as 32 IO pins, or I can take it as a 4 IO ports which consists of 8 pins each. Means 32 IO pins in 8051, 52, as well as 8031. So in case of 8051, we have 1 serial port. 8052 consists of 1 serial port. 8031 consists of 1 serial port. The number of interrupt sources which are available in 8051 are 6. 8052 consists of 8 interrupt sources, and 8031 consists of 6 internal interrupt sources. So some of the other members are 8751, okay, microcontroller. So as compared to the earlier, we had a ROM in 808751, it consists of UV EPROM instead of ROM, which is one time programmable. Okay, 8751 consists of UV, means UV EPROM, ultraviolet erasable programmable read only memory. So if you want to, okay, one thing is that in case of 8051, if you are using a simple 8051, once the ROM has been programmed, it cannot be reprogrammed. But whereas in case of your 8751, as it is having a EPROM, okay, so the EPROM, by exposing it to ultraviolet rays, it can be erased, as well as by using a EPROM programmer, it can be programmed. Then we have 89C51, which is developed from Atmel Corporation, okay, which consists of the flash memory, So before writing anything, no need of using any specialized gadgets or exposing it to UV, okay. So before writing anything into the memory, first automatically the content of the memory can be erased and it can be written. That with a flash, erase before write. A separate eraser is not needed. No special programmers are required. In the system itself, it can be programmed. Then we have DS89C4X0 from Dallas Semiconductors, now which is a part of Maxim Corporation. Again, it consists of a flash memory, comes with on-chip loader software. Okay, means directly, no need of using any specialized thing. Okay, directly the program can be loaded into the flash via PC COM port. And then we have DS5000 from Dallas Semiconductors, which consists of non-volatile RAM. In the earlier cases, if you want to program your either flash memory or entire memory has to be erased. But in case as it consists of non-volatile NVRAM, okay, so any byte by byte the memory can be erased, plus it has a RTC real-time clock, plus it has on-chip loader. Then we have OTP, one-time programmable version of 8051 from Philips. Okay, we have ADC, DAC, extended IO, and both OTP and flash. That depends whatever the OTP, the Philips you have. Okay, so either you can have the flash memory or you can have OTP, just like your programmable read only memory, what we take it as OTP, one time programmable. Okay, once it is by the manufacturers, one time programmable by the system designer, that is your OTP. Okay, then the applications of your microcontroller. So you can have any of your fields or any of the application part. We have the microcontroller which is embedded into it. So whenever we use the word like embedded device or embedded, okay, we have the microcontroller into it. Like we have the applications for your home appliances, like we have the telephones, security systems, garage door openers, answering machines, fax machines, video games, cellular phones. Okay, plus nowadays we have your automatic or your semi-automatic washing machines. You have the microcontroller into it, right? Then for office and automations, like telephone, computers, security systems, fax machines, copiers, laser printer. Okay, then for your automobiles, we have the trip computer, engine control, airbag, ABS, automatic braking system, or anti-skid braking system, ABS. Then we have security system, okay, climate control, so, okay, keyless entry, right? So these are some of the applications nowadays, whatever the field you have or the embedded system. Okay, so you can take any of your applications part, either it may be your home, okay, office automation devices like your computers or fax machines or your copiers or your laser printers, okay, or we have the microcontroller into it, or even a microcontroller, it is having applications in case of your automobiles, like it may be anti-skid braking system, which you call it as a ABS, or security system, or your keyless entry, or even for the entertainment systems in case of automobiles, or it may be the engine control, okay, or in case of your home appliances like washing machines, or it may be your ovens or your TVs or your cable TV tuners, or it may be the camcorders or cellular phones or any of your musical instruments or lighting control, or it may be your toys or exercise equipments. In each and everything, whatever the electronic gadgets we have the embedded system into it, or we can say we have the microcontroller into it. Okay, so in the next module we'll begin with your the introduction to your 8051 as well as the features and internal architecture of 8051. Have a good day.